In lesson 10.5, we are going to learn how to factor quadratic equations. Okay? So how many of you remember FOIL, which is what we did in 10.2 and 10.3, okay? We had a problem that looked just like this, x plus 2 times x plus 3. And they wanted us to multiply this out so that we get a quadratic equation or expression. So we would do first, which is x squared, outer, which is 3x, inner, which is 2x, and last, which is 6. We would then combine like terms. So I just bring down my x squared. My like terms are here. 3x plus 2x is 5x plus 6. Okay? So this is a quadratic expression. Or if I were to set it equal to something, it would become a quadratic equation. What we're doing in factoring is we are starting with a problem that looks like this, and we are going to work backwards and get an answer that looks like this. So right underneath this, I gave you an example. Factoring is the opposite of FOIL. We take a problem that looks like x squared plus 9x plus 20, and we make it look like x plus 5 times x plus 4. So basically, we're taking an expression and we're breaking it down into what multiplies to get that expression, okay? So what I'm going to teach you is called the X method, all right? The X method is where we take a trinomial and we are going to use an X to help us factor it. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to draw an X underneath this problem, just like this. Draw it nice and big, all right? What we do in the X is we are going to put this number right here that is in front of X, which we call this B. That's what we call that, B. Because remember, it's AX squared plus BX plus C. So B is going to go at the top of the X, which is 6. And then C goes down here at the bottom of the X. 8. Okay? Now the whole point of factoring is to find out what multiplies to give me 8 and adds or subtracts to give me 6. So this is how we're going to do this. You ready? It's very simple. We are going to take C and we are going to list all of the factors of C. So anything that multiplies times another thing to give me 8. So it's going to be, I like to write 8 equals 1 times 8 and 2 times 4. Are there any other numbers that multiply to give us 8? No. Okay? Now this is where 8 comes into play, whether it's positive or negative. If C is positive, I'm looking for the two terms that add to give me B. If it's a negative, I'm looking for two terms that subtract to give me B. So looking at this, 8 plus 1. Let's look at the factors right here. Does 8 plus 1 give me 6? Nope. So I know these cannot be my factors. Does 2 plus 4 give me 6? Yes. Because 6 is positive, I know it's going to be a positive 2 and a positive 4. I like to write the plus signs by it just so I know that it's going to be a positive. So this is how we write it, okay? We're going to have our parentheses because we're going to have two binomials. What is the letter that we started off with in our problem? X squared. So basically what I do is I take that X and I break it into 2. See how it's X squared? So I have X and X. All right? Then I'm going to do plus 2 and plus 4 because those are the terms that I chose that multiply to give me 8 and add to give me 6. And that is how we factor. All right? Now, if you ever want to check your work, all you have to do is FOIL, and you should end up with the original problem. Okay? So let's check this really quick. So x times x is x squared plus 4x plus 2x plus 8. X squared plus 6x plus 8. Does that check back to the original? Yes, it does. Now, this right here is just a check. We do not box that in. Do not do that. This right here, the factored form is your answer, okay? So this is up to you whether you want to do it or not. You don't have to, all right? So let's do some more examples, because the more you do, the better you get and the easier it gets. So let's do this first problem right up here. X squared plus 7x plus 10. So let's make our x, okay? What number goes at the top of the x? The b, right here, 7. What number goes at the bottom? 10, our c. So it goes straight down. This goes over here. So I always, always, always list the factors of c, okay? So 10, I'm going to do 1 times 10 and 2 times 5. So now I look at 10. Is 10 positive or negative? It's a positive, so they have to add together to give me 7. So I ask myself, 1 plus 10, does that give me 7? Nope. 2 plus 5? Yes. Now, is 7 positive or negative? It's positive, so the 2 and the 5 are both positive. Okay, what letter did I start out with? X, Y, A, B, C, whatever it may be. It's X. And I'm going to put that at the beginning of the parentheses. X and X. Then I'm going to do plus 2 plus 5. Now, what if you say, well, I wrote plus 5 and then plus 2 instead of the way you did it? That's fine. It does not matter what the order is as long as you have both terms. Okay, now let's do the one right below it. So I'm going to make my x. Negative 5 goes up top because my b is negative 5. And 6 goes on the bottom. So which ones am I going to list the factors for? 6. I'm going to go 1 times 6, 2 times 3. Now, I think that the 5 and 6 combination is one of the trickiest combinations because both of these technically can give me 5 at some point. But you have to look at which way. Do they have to add to give you 5 or do they subtract to give you 5? So we look at what 6 is. If 6 is a positive, they add together. So 2 plus 3 or 1 plus 6. So 1 plus 6, does that give me 5? No. 2 plus 3 does. But look at what 5 is. Whatever the sign of b, or your middle term right here, when they're adding, that means both of the terms are going to be negative. So it's going to be negative 2 and negative 3. You say, wait a second, well, how does that give you a positive 6? Well, if I multiplied negative 2 times negative 3, it gives me positive 6. If I add negative 2 and negative 3, same signs, add and keep, it gives me negative 5. Okay? So it's going to be x minus 2 and x minus 3. So that's how we factor whenever c is a positive. But let's look at the next two problems. C is now a negative. So that's going to change things a little bit. Okay, so we make our x. B goes up top, which is negative 2. And C goes on bottom, which is negative 35. So let's list the factors of 35. And we just can write 35. We don't need to make it negative. 1 times 35 and 5 times 7. Because 35 is a negative, I ask myself which ones subtract to give me negative 2. 1 minus 35, or 35 minus 1. Nope, that does not give me 2. 5 minus 7, or 7 minus 5. Yes, that does, okay? But when it has a subtraction sign for C, one of the terms is going to be positive and one is going to be negative. See how on these problems when it was an addition, they were either both positive or both negative? When C is a negative, one is positive, one is negative. It's always going to be. So I ask myself, does 5 minus 7 give me negative 2? Or does negative 5 plus 7 give me negative 2? Well, 5 minus 7. So I'm going to have a positive 5 and a negative 7. Here's another shortcut. If b is a negative, then that sign's going to go to, or whatever the sign of b. So whether or not it's negative or positive is always going to go to the biggest number. So 7. So let's multiply. Let's do a quick check. 5 times negative 7, negative 35. 5 minus 7, negative 2. So I know I chose the right factors. So 5 is positive, 7 is negative, so I'm going to have x plus 5, x minus 7. And again, you can FOIL to check to make sure you have the right combination. So let's do the next one. Make my x. What is that number that's b? 1, even though I don't see it, I know it's there. And negative 56. Is 1 positive or negative? Positive. Okay, so we're going to keep that in mind. So the factors of 56 are 1 times 56, 2 times 28, 4, is 3 a factor of 56? No, so we move on. 4 times 14, 5 is not, 6 is not, 7 times 8, 9 is not, 10 is not. Usually, once we get up to about 10, we can stop because we've covered all the factors, okay? So, which one of these are going to subtract, because 56 is a negative, to give me 1? 56 minus 1, nope. 28 minus 2, nope. 14 minus 4, no. 8 minus 7, yes. Now, one of these has to be positive, and the other has to be negative. Well, if the 1 is positive or if b is positive, that sign has to go to my biggest number. So which one's bigger, 8 or 7? 8. So 8 is going to be positive, and 7 is going to be negative. Because 8 minus 7 is 1. Positive 8 times negative 7 is negative 56. So it's going to be x plus 8, x minus 7. And if you wrote x minus 7 times x plus 8, that is completely fine. It does not matter which order, as long as you have the right terms. Okay? Let's do some more. And like I said, the more you do of these, the better you're going to get. So let's start out and let's make our x. What number goes up top? 16. 28 goes on bottom. So we're going to list the factors of 28. 1 times 28. 2 times 14. Nothing for 3. Nothing, or I'm sorry, 4 times 7. Nothing for 5. Nothing for 6. 7 we already did, 7 times 4, so I can stop there. Now, is 28 positive or negative? It's positive, so I'm going to look what adds to give me 16. 1 plus 28, no. 2 plus 14, yes. Is 16 positive or negative? It's positive. So that means we're going to have positive 2 and positive 14. So I can write x plus 2 times x plus 14. And these are my two factors. Okay, let's do the one underneath it. Negative 7 goes up top. Negative 8 on the bottom. I'm going to list the factors of 8. 1 times 8. 2 times 4. And I look, is 8 positive or negative? Negative. So I ask myself, which ones subtract to give me 7? 8 minus 1. But 7 is negative, so that means I have to give the negative to the bigger number, which is 8. So 8 is negative, 1 is positive. Let's do a quick check. Negative 8 plus 1 is negative 7. Negative 8 times positive 1 is negative 8. So I know I chose the right factors. X minus 8, times x plus 1. Okay, let's do the next problems. Make my x positive 5, negative 24. So I list the factors of 24. 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, 4 times 6. That's it. Okay. Which ones add or subtract? What am I going to look for? I'm going to look at 24 and I ask myself, okay, oh, it's negative. So it's going to have to subtract to give me 5. So I look down my list and I say, okay, 3 and 8. Those subtract to give me 5. So 3 and 8. 5 is a positive, so that means 8 is going to be positive, the biggest number, and 3 is going to be negative. So I'm going to do x minus 3, x plus 8. Okay, and then the last one we're going to do together, and then we'll let you start working on your homework. Negative 13 and positive 30. So I'm going to list the factors of 30. 1 times 30, 2 times 15, 3 times 10, 5 times 6. So I asked myself, which ones add, because 30 is positive, to give me 13? Because there's two options here. I look and I say, ooh, 15 and 2, but 15 minus 2 is 13. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for which ones add. So I say, oh, okay, 10 and 3, because 10 plus 3 is 13. But what is 13, positive or negative? Negative. So that means both of these have to be negative, okay? X minus 3 and x minus 10. And that is my final answer, okay? So here's your homework. You're going to do page 607, 15 through 26 all. Number 22 and number 23 in the book are written backwards, so you can modify them and rewrite them so it says what it says right up here on this slide.